In this video, I'm going to rate and also do an in-depth review of every single BTO project being offered in this June 2026 BTO launch. Rating is actually very helpful because at the end of the day, every project would have their own strengths and weaknesses, right? So having a set of predefined criteria will be very helpful. Now let's talk about what are the criteria that I'm using. Number one is location, which is basically depending on how long would it take to travel to CBD by public transportation and whether the MRT station is within walking distance. The next criteria is the maximum nearby resale transaction for a 4-room flat. Basically, the more expensive the nearby resale transaction, then the highest the rating would be. The next criteria is the entry price of a 4-room flat. So basically, how much is the flat being offered by HDB? Obviously, the cheapest it is, the higher the rating would be. And next up, I will also judge the amenities. Now, for this one is a little bit on the subjective side, but basically it's being influenced by what are the on-site facilities as well as the amenities in nearby area. Is it within walking distance or do you need to take public transportation, etc.? And then next criteria would be the number of schools. Basically, the more schools you have in the neighborhood, then the higher the rating would be. And last but not least, I'm also going to judge it based on the estimated waiting time. Obviously, the longer it takes to build the BTO, then the lower the score would be. And with that, let's start with Kebun Baru Breeze. So in terms of location, I would give Kebun Baru Breeze a 2. Why? Because, well, it is not that far from CBD area, but then the problem is that it's not within walking distance to any MRT station. And then in terms of potential resale value, I will give it a 5-star because according to HDB data, there are nearby 4-room flat that's already being transacted beyond $1 million, so I'll give it 5-star. And then regarding the BTO entry price for a 4-room flat, Kebun Baru Breeze is being offered starting from $547,000, which means that they would get 2 stars in terms of entry price. Regarding amenities, I would give this project 3 stars. Now, based on the number of schools available, in terms of number of schools, I would give Kebun Baru Breeze 4 stars, and for estimated waiting time, I would give this project 1 star because unfortunately, the estimated waiting time for this project is 52 months, which is significantly longer than the sibling project that is also being offered in Ang Mo Kio, which is Kebun Baru Ridge. So in total, Kebun Baru Breeze average score is 2.8 out of 5 scales. Okay, next up, let's go to Kebun Baru Ridge. So in terms of location, I would give Kebun Baru Ridge 3 because it is slightly nearer to the MRT station. And then for maximum resale price, it's also already beyond $1 million in nearby area. So I would give it 5 stars in terms of potential resale value. And then regarding the BTO entry price, so Kebun Baru Ridge is being offered by HDB starting from $543,000 for a 4-room flat. Hence, I'm giving it 2 stars for entry price. In terms of amenities, I would give Kebun Baru Ridge 4 stars because it has more on-site facilities and it is also within walking distance to nearby hawker center and also several shops and supermarkets. Regarding number of schools, I would give Kebun Baru Ridge 4 out of 5. And then regarding estimated waiting time, Kebun Baru Ridge is actually part of the shorter waiting time program because Kebun Baru Ridge will only take 37 months to complete, then it deserves 4 stars. So in total, the average score for Kebun Baru Ridge is 3.7 out of 5 scales. Now, let's go to Lakeview Cascadia at Bishan. Now, you might be wondering, why am I rating Lakeview Cascadia 3 in terms of location? Well, this is why having a predefined criteria very helpful. So even though Lakeview Cascadia is within walking distance to Marymount MRT station, however, in order to travel to the CBD area using public transportation, it is slightly over 30 minutes. So unfortunately, just to be fair with the criteria, then I would need to rate this project 3 stars in terms of location. Now, in terms of potential resale value, according to HDB, nearby resale transaction for a 4-room flat now goes to around $950,000. So that's why I'm giving Lakeview Cascadia 5 stars in terms of potential resale value. Now, regarding entry price, this project is being offered starting from $534,000, which means that it's getting 2 stars. For amenities, I would give it a 5 because it has great on-site facilities and also there are quite a lot of amenities within walking distance, and you are also able to leverage bus and also MRT in order to reach more amenities. In terms of number of schools, I would give it a 2, just based on the number of schools being shown on the HDB map. Now, regarding estimated waiting time, unfortunately, I would have to give this project 1 star because it will take 51 months for this project to be completed, which is unfortunately very long. So, the average total for Lakeview Cascadia is 3.0 out of 5 scales. Okay, next up, let's talk about Berlayar Rise. So for location, Berlayar Rise gets 5 stars because it is definitely within walking distance to the MRT station and it's a very short commute to the CBD area. In terms of resale value, the nearby 4-room flats already transacted beyond $1 million, so I would give 5 stars for the potential resale value. And for the entry price, obviously it's no surprise that Berlayar Rise only gets 1 star because a 4-room flat in this development is being offered starting from $592,000 before grant, which is the highest among other projects in this June 2026 BTO launch. Now, in terms of amenities, I'm giving this project 5 stars because there are a lot of on-site facilities, and also you can easily take a quick MRT ride or bus ride to the harborfront area for more amenities. In terms of number of schools, unfortunately, Berlayar Rise doesn't have that many schools nearby, so it only gets 2 stars. And for estimated waiting time, Berlayar Rise will take between 49 to 54 months in terms of development, depending on which block that you're getting. But nevertheless, it can only get 1 stars based on our criteria. So the average score for Lakeview Cascadia is 3.2. Now let's go to Woodgrove Acres. So in terms of location, Woodgrove Acres is very far from either Marsiling MRT station as well as Woodlands MRT station. You would just need to take a feeder bus, and also obviously it's very far away from the CBD area, so I can only give 2 stars in terms of location. In terms of potential resale value, according to HDB data, the maximum resale price of 4-room flat in nearby area is already reaching $750,000, which means that in terms of potential resale value, Woodgrove Acres gets 3 stars. Now, how about entry price? So Woodgrove Acres is being offered starting from $353,000 for a 4-room flat, which means that they get 4 stars in terms of BTO price. About amenities, I'm giving this project 2 stars because it doesn't have that many on-site facilities. There is a mall nearby, but then having said that, it's still quite sparse in terms of amenities, like you have to take a bus ride. So I will give it 2 stars. Of course, this is very subjective. In terms of number of schools, based on HDB map, there are plenty of schools. So I will give this Woodgrove Acres 5 stars in terms of schooling options. Now regarding estimated waiting time, HDB estimated that it will take about 42 months to complete Woodgrove Acres. So I'm giving this project 3 stars. If we average the score, then the total is 3.2 out of 5 scales. Now let's talk about Sembawang Portico. In terms of location, I would give this project 2 because it's far from any MRT station and also far from CBD area. In terms of maximum resale value right now, HDB said that a typical 4-room flat now already reaching $680,000 in nearby area. So I would give it 2 stars in terms of resale potential. But having said that, if the Sembawang shipyard transformation plan actually pushes through, but I don't know in how many decades, right? Then the value might eventually improve for Sembawang area. Now, in terms of the minimum BTO price, this is where Sembawang Portico really shines because it is quite affordable. A 4-room flat here is being offered starting from $320,000. Hence, this project gets a 5 stars in terms of BTO entry price. In terms of amenities though, this project only gets 1 star because the on-site facilities is non-existent. There's only a preschool. So you would need to go to other development to get more amenities or take bus ride away to go to Sembawang area. In terms of number of schools, based on HDB map, this project deserves 2 stars in terms of schooling options. And for estimated waiting time, because this project is part of the shorter waiting period, it will only take about 31 months for Sembawang Portico to be completed. Hence, this project gets 5 stars instead of estimated waiting time. If we average the number, the score for Sembawang Portico is 2.8 out of 5 scales. Now, last but not least, let's talk about Sembawang Brook. So in terms of score, Sembawang Brook is actually very similar with Sembawang Portico because these 2 projects are literally side by side. So I will just point out the key difference. For amenities, Sembawang Brook gets a slightly higher score simply because it has more on-site facilities. But other than that, all of the other assessments are quite consistent between Sembawang Portico and Sembawang Brook. And with that, the average average score for Sembawang Brook is 3.0 out of 5 scales. Now, I'm sure you want to know the overall side-by-side comparison, so here it is. Now, personally, before this exercise, honestly, I wasn't expecting Kebun Baru Ridge to take the lead, and it's such a big lead. But I guess why eventually it really become the winner in this exercise, because number one, the estimated waiting time. It's very fast for Kebun Baru Ridge to be developed because it's part of the shorter waiting time program. But at the same time, Kebun Baru Ridge is located in a mature town, which means that it has a high resale value potential. And then in terms of location, it is slightly closer to the MRT station versus Kebun Baru Breeze. That's why if you see the numbers here, Kebun Baru Ridge surprisingly takes the lead. Personally, if we don't have this predefined criteria, I would assume that Berlayar Rice would be the overall winner. But no, Berlayar Rice is not the winner, I think mostly because the estimated waiting time is very long. And then another issue is that it doesn't have that many school options. So as you can see, it is what it is. So I hope that's helpful. Now, let's go into the in-depth discussion of every single BTO project in this June exercise. Let's start with Berlayar Rice. Berlayar Rice is one of the most highly anticipated projects in this June 2026 BTO launch. It is located very near to Teluk Blangah MRT and bounded by Berlayar Street and Berlayar Drive. The project itself comprises of 6 residential blocks ranging from 33 to 49 stories in height, offering a total of 1,976 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, and 4-room flats. In terms of classification, this project comes as a prime flat and is subjected to 14% subsidy clawback when you want to sell the flat later on after MOP. In terms of on-site facilities, Berlayar Rice features a range of facilities for residents of all ages, including a 3-story preschool, residence network center, nature theme playgrounds, fitness corner, and a hard court. But beyond that, this BTO will also house commercial spaces, including a supermarket, an eating house, several restaurants and cafes, and also shops. And above the multi-story car park, there will be a roof garden with fitness facilities and shelters, which will provide additional space for recreation and relaxation. In terms of waiting time, this is a bit unique because it depends on which block are you getting. For block 201B, 204A, and also 204B, it will be about 49 months because these 3 blocks are relatively shorter versus other blocks in this development. But then for the taller blocks, it will be 54 months. If you are wondering which stack is the best and which one is not so ideal, please check out my other video because I will be discussing that in a separate video. Now, let's talk about pricing. So for Berlayar Rice, for 2-room flexi type 1, the price ranges from $247,000 to $341,000. While for 2-room flexi type 2, the price will be ranging from $296,000 to $406,000. For 3-room, it is being offered starting from $435,000 up to $591,000, which is slightly cheaper than the resale transacted price in nearby area. According to HDB, the nearby transacted price for 3-room ranges between $740,000 to $771,000. And for 4-room flat, the price will range between $592,000 to $810,000, whereas the resale price, as you can see there, already goes beyond $1 million. If we compare the BTO price versus the resale price, the 3-room flat is about 76% versus its resale price, and then for 4-room, it's about 75% versus resale price. Now, there's no comparable resale transaction for 2-room flexi, that's why it's being kept blank. Now, you might be wondering whether this price is good deal or not, and I think the best way to answer that would be to compare this price with the price of Berlayar Residences, which is another BTO that was launched some time ago and located just across the street. So for 2-room flexi, Berlayar Residences prices was ranging from $218,000 to $369,000, which is definitely cheaper from Berlayar Rice. And just to refresh your memory, Berlayar Residences was launched back in October 2025, so it's not even that long time ago. And then for 3-room, Berlayar Residences price was $420,000 to $562,000. Again, slightly cheaper versus Berlayar Rice because for Berlayar Rice, as you can see there, the price starts from $435,000. Now, for 4-room flat, obviously there's also has been an increase Because for Berlayar residences, the price started from $578,000 up to $788,000. But for Berlayar Rise, now it's being offered starting from $592,000 to $810,000. Again, this amount is excluding housing grants. However, the good news is that Berlayar Rise subsidy recovery percentage is actually exactly the same with Berlayar Residences, which is 14%. Okay, now let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave. If I look at the Google map, basically this is the corresponding land plot. As you can see, this is right opposite the previous Berlayar Residences that was launched in 2025. And as you can see, it is definitely within walking distance to the Teluk Blangah MRT station, so that's very good. One thing to note is that at the back of the plot, as you can see, there's a highway here. So if let's say you don't get a good queue number, you might face the highway. So that is something to take note of. Now, the development itself comes with great on-site facilities because it will have supermarket and eating house, etc. Right? So that's good. If you want more amenities, of course, you can simply take the train and go to Harbourfront area where there are more amenities here. Or if you like active lifestyle, as you can see, quite a lot of option from Bukit Cermin Boardwalk, or you can go to Labrador Nature Reserve, or you can go to Mount Faber, or you can even go to Sentosa, for example, if you want to enjoy your time with your family. So I think definitely this location is good to have work-life balance because the distance to CBD area is also quite close. Now there are also like some small shops and like eateries underneath the development that you see surrounding the area. So that can be also an option if you want more amenities. However, if you look at the map, if you have young children, the reality is that this location doesn't have much schooling option. So you can see Blangah Rise Primary School is over here. But then other than that, the option is very limited, right? You have Radin Mas Primary School, but it's a bit far. You have CHIJ St. Teresa's Convent, but it's quite far. So I think that would be the trade-off if you want to live in this location. But of course, nowadays the problem can be easily solved by school bus, right? So that would solve the distance problem. Now let's zoom out and see what are your chances in getting ocean view. So the land plot is at the back, right? And then as you can see, actually there are land plots that is closer to the water. So there's always a possibility that even though you have a middle or high floor, some new development will be developed there, and then you ended up just looking at another tower instead of the ocean. So that would be the watch out. But if let's say you're lucky enough and then your view doesn't get blocked, indeed, like towards the southern area, you would be able to see some ocean view. But if not, even this side would be good because you would be looking at the greeneries of Mount Faber, which I think will be nice as well. So you would be able to see like city view on this side. So I think overall it's still a strong option if you want to apply for a BTO in this June 2026 launch. Now let's talk about the pros and cons, starting with what I like first. So I think this location definitely would have extremely high resale value, especially if you manage to snatch one of the high floors. If let's say you have unit facing the ocean, definitely that would be a bonus for many people. However, having said that, looking at the map, this project is not the closest to the water though. So even if let's say at the beginning you can see the ocean, I don't know whether it will be there for long because there's always a possibility of your view getting blocked by future development. So take that with a grain of salt. And then another thing that I like is I think this development on its own already have the premium image because it is HDB, but it has a lot of on-site facilities, which makes it very convenient if you live here. And I'm sure it will also help with the resale value later on. Another thing that I like is that this project have almost 2,000 flats. So when it's time for you to sell your flat, let's say after MOP you want to sell, there will be a lot of price benchmark for resale, and typically a lot of benchmark will mean that it's easier to fetch even a higher price. And then another good thing with the number of flats, because there are so many flats, hopefully the application rate will be more manageable because the supply hopefully will be able to keep up with the demand. Another thing that I like is that because it is very near to the Teluk Blangah MRT station, it will be easy to commute to work if you are working in the CBD area, or if you want to get more amenities, let's say in the harborfront area, it will be very convenient. If let's say you want to rent out some of the rooms here, it should be easy as well. I think the demand will be quite high. But remember, because this will be a prime flat, you will not be able to rent out the whole flat even after MOP. So please take note of that. And then if you like active lifestyle, this location is near the Bukit Cermin boardwalk, so you can jog near the ocean in theory. And then another thing that I like is that this project have plenty of two-room flexi as well as four-room. Particularly for two-room flexi, 810 is a lot. Now, on the other hand, what are the things that I don't really like about this development? I think first and foremost, if we look at the map, this project is next to a highway, so certain blocks, especially if you can only get low to middle floor, it will be noisy and dusty. So again, it will boils down to your queue number later on. Another thing that I read from online forums is there's actually a trade-off if your development has an eating house, supermarket, cafes, etc. downstairs. It's good for your convenience, but for those who are living on the lower floor, actually it's a double edge because it will be noisier for you, and then there will be also like more cockroaches and bugs, specifically because of the eating house and the supermarket downstairs. But of course, this is only applicable for certain blocks. Not every block will have this problem. I think another downside would be for family with young children. Please take note that this location doesn't have much school options. And I don't think this will be resolved anytime soon. So you have to bear in mind that if you have school-going children, they would just have to take school bus, which is additional cost, right? The restrictions that comes with prime development, of course, I think most people would be familiar with it. The 10-year MOP, cannot rent out the whole flat even after MOP, the income ceiling for future resale buyers, etc. Another downside that you need to consider is that the ocean view might eventually be blocked by other development that will be closer to the water. So that is something to think about. Another thing that you need to watch out for is that the area for this ex-keppel ground is still under development, right? If you see the map, so Berlayar residences will be there, and then this project is there, but then the rest of the land plot are still not announced yet, but it will be developed soon. So which means that you can expect some construction dust and noise from the surrounding areas for several years to come. That is almost certain. So in summary, I think considering all factors, this is still a very solid option if you want to apply for a BTO, because if you look at it from different angles, it does have a lot of good selling points. So for example, it's very near to MRT station, the on-site facilities are great, and the potential resale value is very strong, etc. So overall, this is a very good option. But for families, I think the lack of nearby school options is going to be a real challenge. Another thing to note is that even though this development is relatively near to the ocean, please do not hope so much for ocean view, even for high floors, because again, if we look at the map, this land plot is not the closest development to the water, so the ocean view might eventually get blocked. What I'm trying to say is that I think at the end of the day, you need to really stay true to your budget. So don't overextend yourself just to get the highest floor, because it might not get the ocean view that you wanted. So just buy within your budget, what you're comfortable with. Next up, let's talk about Lakeview Cascadia. Lakeview Cascadia is probably one of my most favorite project in this June 2026 BTO launch. Why? Because even though it is located in a mature town, it is within walking distance to Marymount MRT station. According to Google Map, it's only 550 meters away. Bounded by Upper Thompson Road, Lakeview Cascadia comprises of 5 residential blocks. The project ranges from 18 to 40 stories in height, with 1,221 units of 2-room flexi and 4-room flats. So there's no 3-room, there's no 5-room, it's just strictly 2-room flexi and 4-room flats. These flats will be offered under prime classification, which is already predicted by me, and 2 of these blocks will include a total of 50 rental flats. This project is very near to Makrichi Reservoir, and residents on top of that can also enjoy facilities such as children's playground, fitness stations, residents network center, etc. The multi-story car park also features some commercial amenities such as mini mart, shops, an eating house, and also a preschool. On top of the multi-story car park, a roof garden will be hosting an adult fitness station, a hard court, and also community garden to encourage social bonding. Now, in terms of the waiting time, it's kind of long because it will take about 51 months for this project to be completed. And again, because this project is categorized as prime, the subsidy clawback rate is set at 10%. And because this is a prime project, remember that you will be subjected to subsidy recovery rate, which is set at 10% for this project. Now, if we look at the site plan, there are actually several blocks dedicated for mixed stack rental flat. So, for example, for block 3 to 6A, from level 2 until level 18, it is rental flat. But then level 19 until level 40, if I'm not mistaken, it will be BTO flats for sale. And then for block 3 to 7A, from level 2 to level 9, it will be rental flat. But from level 10 to level 18, it will be the typical BTO for sale. Now, if you want to know my in-depth analysis about this site plan, like which is the best stack and then which ones are less than ideal, please check out my other video because I will be discussing it on a separate video. Now, let's talk about the price. So, in Lakeview Cascadia, 2-room flexi type 1 starts from $216,000 up to $287,000. And then for 2-room flexi type 2, of course, it's more expensive because it's slightly bigger. The price starts from $257,000 to $361,000. I guess what's exciting for singles and also seniors, as you can see, there are quite plenty of 2-room flexi being offered in this project. So that's good news if you are looking for 2-room flexi and want to live in a mature town. And then for 4-room flat, in this project, it will start from $534,000 to $742,000. If we compare it with the resale price, the resale price nearby the area is just slightly under $1 million. But I'm pretty confident that if you are lucky enough to get a 4-room flat in Lakeview Cascadia, especially if it's high floor, then, 15 years from now, which is the construction time plus the MOP, I'm very confident you will be able to sell it beyond $1 million, assuming that the government doesn't do a major change in terms of policy. But then again, remember that because this is a prime project, there's a 10% subsidy recovery percentage for Lakeview Cascadia. Now let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave. As you can see, it is quite near the Marymount MRT station. And if we look at the Google map, I believe that this is the land plot that HDB was talking about. And as you can see, it's a very, very huge land plot. No wonder it can fit more than 1,200 flats. Now, if we zoom out, as you can see, actually, the Makrichi is over here. So initially, I thought, oh, this will be such a nice greenery view. And also, you can see the waterfront over here. That'll be nice. But unfortunately, upon closer look, that's actually won't be the case because of this building, you see. There's this residential block, which is called Lakeview Estate. So according to the internet, that building is a condo which was privatized from HUDC back in 2003, but that building itself was completed back in 1977. So it's a long time ago. So it's kind of old. Now, some people say that it's about 34-story high. So unfortunately, your view will be blocked by this, maybe except this part. So this part,
seems like a parking lot or something. So maybe if you are lucky enough to get a block that is facing this car park, then you will be able to get a glimpse of the Makrichi reservoir, which will be great. Now, there's also a buzz that this Lakeview estate will eventually be unblocked. If it's the case, then unfortunately, even though the building will be torn down, but then a new building will be developed, right? There's a possibility it will be even taller, which means that your view will still be blocked. So please take note that if you apply for this project, you can't really expect like unblocked greener view of the Makrichi Reservoir. Now on this side, these are like low-rise buildings, so you may be able to get unblocked view if you face this way. And then on this part, this is like older HDB, which means that it's a bit tall as well. So this side is kind of blocked as well, even though as you can see, there's this strip of empty land plot over here. On the map, this land plot looks a bit small, but I think that it will be developed into something in the future. Now, in terms of amenities, actually, along the Upper Thompson Road, there are a lot of eateries and small shops around here. So you will have some good choices within walking distance. And of course, obviously, Sinming Plaza is over here, Thompson Plaza is over here, and of course, Bishan is just right over here. It's very close to go to Bishan. You can either take the MRT or take the bus, so that would be great. Now let's talk about school option. So if we look at this map, as you can see, there are few school option, but then it's kind of limited. As you can see, you have Whitley Secondary School, Catholic High School, Raffles Institution, but then I guess most people would focus on this one, Aitong School. So according to Google Map, it will be within the 2-kilometer radius. So, if you're interested to put your kids here, then this is good to know. Even if you don't have any school-going children, usually in Singapore, if your house is near top schools, it will also help to boost the resale value later down the road. So now let's talk about the pros and cons. So what do I like about this project? So I love the fact that this location, you can just walk to Marymount MRT station. So it's easy for you to go anywhere in Singapore. And then I also like that this is a mega project with more than 1,200 flats, which is kind of rare nowadays, especially if you're talking about mature town. We did have several mega projects in mature town, but most of them are like far away from MRT station. So the fact that this project is a mega project and it's near MRT station is very special. Another good thing, if you have a lot of neighbors within the same development, that will actually be good for resale benchmark later on. So it'll be kind of easier to get a higher price when you're trying to sell your flat after MOP. And then I also appreciate that the on-site facilities are quite good, because you will have an eating house, a mini mart, several shops, preschool, and also residence network center. Unfortunately, there's no supermarket in the on-site facilities, but then given the location of this project, it will be easy for you to shop anyway. Speaking about amenities, as mentioned before, this location is quite near to the Thompson Plaza, Sinming Plaza, and along the Upper Thompson Road, there are a lot of eateries and small shops as well. And of course, you can always take an MRT or bus to Bishan MRT station, because that side will have even more amenities. In terms of school options, this project is within 2-kilometer radius to Aitong School, but of course you need to consider as well like which block are you staying in. And then another good thing about this project is because there is only one project being launched in Bishan town for June, then you don't have to worry about the lottery effect, or whether you need to pick between two projects depending on your queue number, etc. So you don't have that problem here in Bishan town for this June 2026 launch. And I think in terms of the resale value, this project will hold its value well. And I think you should not have any problem trying to rent out rooms as well, because of the location and also the competitor nearby seems to be like older development. So I think if you are lucky enough to get a flat in this BTO, it should be very easy for you to sell later down the road or even rent out rooms if you want to do so. Now, on the other hand, what are the things that I think you need to watch out for? For me, the biggest letdown, unfortunately, is actually the view most likely will be blocked by an older development, which is Lakeview Estate, which is closer to the greeneries as you can see on the map. This development is an older condo which is ex-HUDC, completed in 1977. According to Google, it's about 34 stories high. So unfortunately, most likely your view will be blocked by this development. Otherwise, you would have like a nice unblocked view, but unfortunately that's not the case. Another watch out is because this project will have an eating house, a mini mart, and several shops, etc. Watch out that for lower floors in certain block, you might get more noise pollution or even risk of cockroaches and bugs and rodents because of these eating house and shops. That might be a risk for you. This project will be a prime project. There are quite a lot of strict restrictions that comes with this development. I'm sure you are familiar with it by now, such as the 10-year MOP, subsidy clawback, you cannot rent out the whole flat even after MOP, your future resale buyers is subjected to income ceiling, etc. Another thing is objectively, there aren't that many school options that is nearby this development, even though Aitong looks like going to be within 2-kilometer radius from this development. But then other than that, if you look at the map objectively, there aren't that many school options nearby. Another downside, I'm guessing that this Bishan BTO project will be one of the darling in the June 2026 BTO launch, so expect the competition to be quite high. So what's the summary? I think the fact that the government socialized this land plot on the media even before the official announcement, that means that they are confident that this project will please a lot of people, and I think it does. It's quite rare nowadays to have a mega BTO project that is near MRT station and located in a mature town. Even though there are other projects near the plot with standard classification, as you can see, even closer to the Marymount MRT station, there are older HDB buildings, but then they are much older. I think they are launched like in the 70s or in the 80s, so it's not really your direct competition when you want to sell your flat later on after MOP. However, if you were hoping to get unblocked view towards the Makrichi Reservoir or the Lower Pierce Reservoir, unfortunately, I don't think you will get it in general because the old development next door, Lakeview Estate, going to block most of the view because it is 34 stories high, and from the map of it, your view will be blocked by it unless you are lucky enough to face the car park of the Lakeview Estate, which means that you can get some pockets of unblocked view, but then overall it will still be blocked. And then for young families, please note that the number of school option is actually kind of limited. If your kid is not going to Aitong, then where would they go? Of course, that problem can be easily solved with school bus, but then I just want to make sure that you realize that the school option is indeed limited. But overall, I believe that this project is still a very solid choice. Highly recommended if you want to live in the Bishan area.
Now let's talk about Kebun Baru Breeze. If you want to live in a mature town and like greeneries, this project might be for you. So Kebun Baru Breeze is located just across the street from the scenic Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, and it's bounded by Ang Mo Kio Avenue 1 and Ang Mo Kio Rise. The project comprises of 2 residential blocks, each 30 stories high, offering a total of 579 units of 2-room flexi and 4-room flats. So in this project, there are no 3-room flats or 5-room flats. One of the blocks will also include another 58 rental rental units. In terms of waiting time, this project will be completed in about 52 months. And then because this project is classified as A+, it comes with 8% subsidy recovery rate. In terms of amenities, unfortunately, this particular project is a little bit on the bare side because it only has a preschool, but then that's it. Obviously, has the typical fitness facilities, children's playground, etc. But then if you want more amenities, you just have to go to the nearby development or take a bus to Bishan MRT area or Mayflower MRT station area. If we look at the site plan, they have dedicated stacks for rental flats, so it's not the mixed stack approach like in the Lakeview Cascadia BTO. So this one, there are 2 stacks that are dedicated for rental flats only. Now, if you want to know more about my analysis of the site plan, like which ones are the best stack and then which ones are less than ideal, then check out my other video because I will be discussing it separately. Now let's talk about the price. So Kebun Baru Breeze for 2-room Flexi Type 1, the price will start from $100,000 and $91,000 up to $275,000. And then for 2-room Flexi Type 2, the price starts from $255,000 to $349,000. For 4-room flat, the price starts from $547,000 to $746,000. Now, HDB only shared nearby transacted price for 4-room flats. So in the surrounding area, they said that resale typically goes from $830,000 to $1,080,000. But then, of course, given that this project is located in the Ang Mo Kio town, which typically has a lot of strong demand from resale buyers, I think you would be able to find pool of buyers in the future when you are ready to sell. However, please note that this project is not exactly within walking distance to MRT station. According to Google Map, it's about 1 kilometer away from the Mayflower MRT station, or you can also take a bus to Bishan MRT station. So that should be part of your consideration. Now, you might wonder what is the price difference between Kebun Baru Ridge and Kebun Baru Breeze, because remember, in this BTO launch, there are 2 projects in Ang Mo Kio town, right? And according to current rule, you actually no longer able to pick the project from the get-go. What you can do is that you indicate the town that you want and the flat type that you want. And then, assuming that you're lucky enough to get a queue number, you can pick among the available units when you are being called to the HDB office. Now, interestingly for Kebun Baru Breeze, it only has 2-room Flexi and 4-room. But then Kebun Baru Ridge only have 3-room and 4-room. So if we want to compare these 2 projects, then we can only compare for 4-room flat. So as you can see, for Kebun Baru Ridge, the price actually starts a little bit lower, starting from $543,000, and it goes up to $693,000, which is quite interesting because if we look at the map, Kebun Baru Ridge, which is the other BTO project in Ang Mo Kio, is actually closer to Mayflower MRT station compared to Kebun Baru Ridge. So what I'm trying to say is Kebun Baru Ridge is relatively cheaper and is relatively closer to MRT station. So that's very interesting. Now let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave, and the land plot is here, which is near the Amo Residence condo. If we look at the map, as you can see, the location is in between Mayflower MRT station and Bright Hill MRT station. So according to Google Map, seems like this is slightly closer to Mayflower MRT station, but it's still about 1 kilometer away. So realistically, for day-to-day living, most probably you would need to take a feeder bus to the nearest MRT station. Now, if I look at the Google Map, it seems that this is the corresponding site, which is the land plot over here. Now, it is quite near to the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, which I think is very good if you like active lifestyle. And if I zoom out, it is also relatively close to the Lower Pierce Reservoir Park. In terms of amenities, as you can see, a couple of blocks away, there's a Sheng supermarket over here and then some eateries. And then if you want more option, the Kebun Baru Market and Food Center is over here, as well as an active SG gym. It's also over here. So it seems that there are some amenities within the walking distance if you opted for this location. However, there is a very big watch out about this location in Ang Mo Kio Avenue 1, because if you see a land plot over here, this is actually another BTO that is relatively young. So this is Kebun Baru Edge, which was part of the 2020 BTO launch, and the key collection is in 2025.
So it's very new. So I'm currently showing you the Kebun Baru Edge map itself. As you can see, it is literally like within walking distance from this upcoming location for June 2026. So this Kebun Baru Edge was launched before the new HDB classification, which means that it only has a 5-year MOP and the standard classification. And because the age is also very young, I think, like it or not, it will have an impact to your resale value down the road, because you are essentially having a competition with less strict rules and quite young as well. Now let's go back to the HDB map regarding this June 2026 BTO launch, and let's talk about school option. So as you can see, Mayflower Secondary School is nearby, and then there's also Ang Mo Kio Primary School relatively near, Pierce Secondary School. And then a lot of people are excited because Aitong School is over here. If you are keen to have a location that has strong selection of schooling options, then probably this BTO would be a top contender for you. Other than that, the CHIJ St. Nicholas Girls Primary and Secondary School is also over here. But I think the CHIJ is actually closer to the other Ang Mo Kio site at Kebun Baru X school ground site. So the other location in Ang Mo Kio is around here, and then the project that we're talking about is around here. So it's not exactly side by side, but indeed it's still along the road of Ang Mo Kio Avenue 2. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of this location. I think the first thing that grabs my attention is the fact that this spot will be near some top schools such as Aitong and then Pierce Secondary School, etc. So I think that would be good for young families as well as good for your resale value later on. Another thing that I appreciate is that there are some amenities nearby, like Kebun Baru Market and Food Center, Melbourne Seafood, etc. And you are also a bus ride away to more amenities. I think regarding the location, even though it's slightly far away from MRT station, I think this will still holds value in terms of resale later on. Another thing that I like is that the fact that this spot is near the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park and also Lower Pierce Reservoir. Now, on the other hand, what are the things that you need to watch out about this location? I think the biggest red flag for me is the fact that the BTO next door is very young, and Kebun Baru Edge TOP in 2025, and it was launched in August 2020 before any of this plus classification. So that BTO literally only have standard classification, and any future resale buyers would of course also consider that as an option if they are looking to buy a resale flat around the same area. So that will be your competition in the future. Another watch out is that according to the map, it is a bit far from MRT station, which is about 1 kilometer away according to Google Map. But having said that, I think you can easily just take bus to nearest MRT station if it's too far to walk. So it's not a deal breaker because again, this is Ang Mo Kio area. Another watch out is that this project is actually relatively small in terms of scale because there will only be 570 units available. Small projects means that you will have less price benchmark in the future, which means that it's going to be a bit more challenging to ask for higher prices. Another downside is that because of the limited amount of units, you might have very stiff competition. I am anticipating the application rate for Ang Mo Kio to be very high in the upcoming June 2026. So just be prepared with that. On-site facilities is also kinda bare because there will only be a preschool, but then that's it. And then of course, another cons would be this project will have strict restrictions. Let me know in the comment section down below if you think there are more pros or cons that I need to mention in this video. Now, let's talk about the verdict. So I think personally, this project has a very special place in my heart because I love to run in the morning, and the fact that this project is so close to the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park is a big plus, at least for someone like me. However, even putting aside the part that it's near a park, objectively, this Ang Mo Kio project is slightly not as good as the other Ang Mo Kio project. The reason why I'm saying that is because, again, this project has a neighbor that is young, Kebun Baru Edge, and it only has 5 years MOP. So if let's say I'm applying for Ang Mo Kio town and then somehow there's a miracle, I get a good queue number and then both projects are available, this one and the one that was sitting on the former Kebun Baru school ground, I think I would prefer the other one because I think the other one is also slightly closer to the MRT station. So, but that's just me. But if you don't really focus so much on the potential resale value down the line, then actually you can just pick, whichever is available and whichever suits your family's needs. So overall, this location is actually a strong option if you like the Ang Mo Kio area. Just the watch out is that neighbor is so young. So it will definitely impact your resale value. I think that's it. But other than that, this is a good option.
Next, let's talk about Kebun Baru Ridge. If you want a BTO in a mature town that will be completed very soon and has a lot of on-site facilities, then this project might be for you. Kebun Baru Ridge is situated along Ang Mo Kio Avenue 2, and this place used to be the Kebun Baru Primary School. The project comprises of 3 residential blocks ranging from 20 to 21 stories in height, offering 485 units of 3-room and 4-room flats. So, unfortunately, there's no 2-room flexi in this project. What's unique about this project is that this is part of the shorter waiting time because you only need to wait about 3 years and 1 month, as HDB has started the construction some time ago. In terms of classification, this project comes as a plus, which also means that you will be subjected to 8% subsidy recovery when you want to resell this flat after MOP. For a project that is relatively small, actually the on-site facilities for this project is quite surprising in a good way. Why? Because it will have an eating house, a mini mart, several shops, preschool, and also residence network center. If you're wondering whether it's near MRT station or not, well, unfortunately it's about 850 meters away to Mayflower. But some say you can reach MRT station faster if you just walk under the existing HDB blocks of other development. And if we look at the site plan, I think it's true because it has a lot of connection that will be built to existing public housing, so that's good. However, when I look at the site plan, I can't help but notice that the proportion between lifts and number of units seems to be not ideal because, as you can see, there are a lot of long corridors. For example, at Block 184B, you will need to share 3 lifts with 9 units, and remember that for Block 184B, the number of stories is 20. So I guess the watch out is that if you buy this project, then you might need to wait a little bit longer to queue for the lift, especially during peak hours. If you want to know what are my other insights from looking at the site plan, such as which ones are the best stack and then which ones are not so ideal, please check out my other video because I will be discussing about that separately. Now let's talk about the pricing. So for Kebun Baru Ridge, 3-room starts from $380,000 to $492,000, while 4-room flat will be offered starting from $543,000 to $693,000. If we compare the price for 4-room flat between BTO versus nearby resale transaction, the area is already selling between $830,000 to beyond $1 million. So this project is quite good for those who prefers projects with strong resale potential in the future. But of course, remember that this is a plus project, which means that you would need to pay the 8% subsidy clawback upon selling your unit. Probably another good thing about this project is that it is actually slightly cheaper versus Kebun Baru Breeze, which is another project also in Ang Mo Kio. I'm not sure what's the reason behind this price difference because, in the past, typically, if there are 2 BTO projects offered in the same town, the price will be quite similar, but in this case, it's not. Because if you look at the numbers, Kebun Baru Breeze price starts from $547,000 to $746,000. So as you can see, the other project, Kebun Baru Breeze, is somehow more expensive. But I guess that's a good news if you are more interested in Kebun Baru Ridge, right? However, do note that because HDB rule stipulates stipulated that you can only pick the town and not the project itself during the earlier balloting stage, you can only indicate that you want Ang Mo Kio town. But then whether you get Kebun Baru Ridge or Kebun Baru Breeze, it will depend on what's still available during your appointment with HDB. Of course, this is assuming that you manage to get a queue number.
Now let's talk about the location. Okay, so this is the map that HDB gave. As you can see, this is the land plot next to the panorama condo. So if we look at Google Map, I believe that this is the land plot. And as you can see, it is within walking distance, I guess, to Mayflower Market and Food Center. If you just bypass this HDB block, MRT is over here. So probably, yeah, if you cut through the road here from these HDB blocks, then you will be able to get to the Mayflower MRT station even sooner. Now, this land plot is also quite close to the CHIJ St. Nicholas Girls School, which I believe will be a good selling point if you have young children and you want to put them here, or if let's say you want to sell your flat after MOP, this will be a good selling point. Now if we look at the land plot, so this part is facing high-rise residential building, right? This part also, but this part is facing low-rise building. So I'm guessing that if you manage to get a medium or high floor, you will be able to get unblocked view. Assuming that you manage to get a block that is facing this Thompson Hill area. This part is a condo, so your view will be blocked. Yeah, so it seems that your best bet to get unblocked view is only if you face this Thompson Hill area. Now, in terms of potential resale value later down the road, if we look at the map, the nearest HDB to the land plot are kind of old. So according to Google, as you can see here, the lease year started in like 1980s. So definitely it will not be your direct competitor if you want to sell your unit later on, because even though these are only standard flats, but then again, they are kind of old, right? Which means that even though these surrounding HDB are only subjected to 5-year MOP and standard restrictions, but then again, because of their age, they are not really your direct competition when you want to sell your BTO later after MOP. Now, in terms of school options, as you can see on the map, there are several primary and secondary schools nearby. So that's a good news for families with young children. For example, you have the Mayflower Primary School over here, and then you also have another primary school here, Ang Mo Kio Primary School, and even actually Aitong is here, but it's a little bit further away. If you want to be nearer to Aitong School, then you can opt for the other Ang Mo Kio BTO that is nearer to Amo residents. It is also being launched in June 2026. Now, I have discussed that project in a separate video, so if you are interested to know more about that project, please check out my other video also in this channel. Now, let's talk about what are the pros and cons of this location. What I like about this spot is that it seems to be within walking distance to MRT station, especially if you just bypass the next door HDB blocks. And then I also appreciate that this project will be part of the shorter waiting time program. As mentioned by HDB in their press release, apparently they already started construction in September 2025, and this particular BTO is scheduled to be completed in the first quarter of 2030. So that's quite near. And then I also appreciate that it is near top school, which is the CHIJ St. Nicholas Girls School, which means that it will help families with young children, but also it is good for your future resale value if you want to sell your flat later on. And then because this project is located in Ang Mo Kio town, which is a mature town, you can be rest assured that this project will have a strong resale value later on, especially when you look at the map. The neighboring HDBs are kind of old, like launched in the 80s or something like that. So even though this project will be subjected to the 10-year MOP and other strict restrictions such as income ceiling for future buyer, etc., but then again, because your competitors are kind of old buildings, you will still be able to get good amount when you sell sell your flat later on. That's what I am predicting. I also appreciate that this project, even though it's kind of small, only 480 units, but it has a lot of on-site facilities, including an eating house, a mini mart, several shops, preschool, and also residence network center. I also appreciate that this project is within walking distance to some amenities such as Mayflower Market and Food Centers, Shengshong Supermarket, can also walk to McDonald's. There are also several other restaurants and shops nearby. Of course, if you want more amenities, you can simply take the MRT or take bus ride to other parts of Singapore. Another upside about this project is that there is one side that is facing landed housing estate. So at least certain blocks will be able to get unblocked view for medium up to high level floors. Now, on the other hand, what don't I like about this project? Well, the fact is, this is the smallest project in the batch. If you compare with other project being launched in this June 2026, this means that you will have stiff competition and then you will also have less price benchmark when you want to sell your flat later on. Another downside is that this particular project does not have any turun flexi, which is not a good news for seniors and singles. If you still want to apply for Ang Mo Kio Town and you want a turun flexi, it is doable, but then it will be accommodated by the other Ang Mo Kio project, which is located in Ang Mo Kio Avenue 1. But for this particular site in Kebun Baru, this one don't have any turun flexi. Another downside, I am predicting that this project will have high entry price because it is subjected to plus restrictions, meaning that it doesn't get subsidy as much as if it is a prime project. And then another watch out is that for low floors on certain blocks, you might encounter noise and pest problems because there will be an eating house, mini mart, and several shops on site. So be very careful when you want to choose your unit later on. Of course, another downside is that this project comes with strict restrictions, but I think that comes to no surprise for people who are applying for BTO nowadays. Another watch out is that because there are two projects that is being offered in Ang Mo Kio for this June 2026 launch, you have a ballot risk because it will depend on your queue number. The way that it works is that you will be called to the HDB office, right, depending on your queue number. And then which project you can pick will depend on what's still available during your appointment. So this project in Ang Mo Kio Avenue 2 is slightly closer to the MRT station, so probably this will be more popular versus the other one. But to be honest, I think both Ang Mo Kio projects are kinda still neck and neck in terms of their pros and cons. So I wouldn't worry too much because whether you get this plot or the other plot, it's still a solid choice either way. So let's do a recap. In summary, I believe that overall, this is still a very solid option if you want to live in a mature town and still relatively within walking distance to MRT station. Based on how the government already mentioned this project in the media in the early 2026, even before it was officially announced, this indicates that even the government think that this project will be the crowd's favorite. This project does tick a lot of boxes in terms of distance to MRT station, school options, it is located in a mature town, strong resale potential, etc. So I think this is indeed a good option. However, please take note that there's only 470 units in this development. It's not much, and even the other Ang Mo Kio project is also not that much, which means that you can expect the application rate for Ang Mo Kio Town in this upcoming June 2026 will be quite high, so the competition will be a bit fierce. The resale value for this project, I think, will be better versus the other Ang Mo Kio project simply because the surrounding of this Kebun Baru site is surrounded by older HDB, so they will not be your direct competitor.
Next, let's talk about Woodgrove Acres. If you have been waiting for a BTO in the Woodlands area, then this project is for you. Woodgrove Acres is located along Woodgrove Avenue and features 5 residential blocks of 15 to 19 stories, and the total is 656 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, and also 5-room flats. These flats are offered under standard flats, so you are only subjected to the typical 5-year MOP. There's no subsidy recovery percentage or there's no subsidy clawback, and you can also rent out the whole flat after MOP. FYI that there's an additional 261 units of rental flats, which is spread across 4 different blocks. One of it is full rental block. In terms of construction time, the estimated waiting time for this project is about 42 months. So if you compare it among other projects in this BTO launch, it's basically sits somewhere in the middle. It's not the fastest, but it's not the slowest either. In terms of on-site facilities, unfortunately, this project only has a preschool, but then there are more facilities in nearby mall as well as the nearby BTO development within walking distance. So you should be okay for amenities. However, please take note that this project is not near any MRT station, so you would need to rely on feeder buses because Marsiling MRT station is about 1.3 kilometer away and Woodlands is about 1.6 kilometer away. So this project is basically like somewhere in the middle. But if you don't mind taking feeder bus, then this project might be just for you. If we look at the site plan, one thing that really catch my attention is the fact that there are a lot of long corridors here. So for example, in block 446B, as you can see, 3 lifts is going to be shared by like 12 units, which is quite a lot. So if you buy a BTO flat in this development, I think you need to be ready for a slightly long queue during peak hours. And there's also going to be some privacy issue maybe, like people can see to your kitchen and laundry area from the corridor, of course, depending on which unit you are able to get. Now, if you want to know my other insights about Woodgrove Acres, such as like which stack is the best, which one has the best facing, etc., please check out my other video because I will be discussing it separately. Now let's talk about pricing. So for 2-room flexi type 1, the price starts from $137,000 up to $170,000, and for 2-room flexi type 2, price starts from $164,000 to $211,000. For 3-room, the price starts from $260,000 up to $325,000, and for 4-room, price starts from $353,000 to $437,000, and for 5-room, surprisingly, actually the price is very affordable in my opinion. For 5-room, the price starts from $472,000 to $582,000. So considering this project is located in Woodlands, which historically has a very strong demand even for resale buyers, and then the fact that this project is only classified as a standard project and it has a 5-room, I think if you have the budget for it and if you like Woodlands area, I believe that this is a golden opportunity for you to secure the 5-room. Other than that, if you notice, the number of units of 5-room in this development is actually a lot. There are 257 5-room flats, even more than 4-room flats. For 4-room, they only provided 162, but again, for 5-room, they provided 257. So I think this is a very good chance if you like Woodlands town. And I also want to point out that for certain flat type, Woodgrove Acres actually provided the most affordable flats. So for example, for 2-room flexi type 1, as you can see on the tables, surprisingly, Woodgrove Acres is even cheaper than the 2 Sembawang projects. Unfortunately, this trend again is only applicable for certain flat type only. So for example, if we look at 4-room option, Woodgrove Acres is no longer the most affordable one. If we take another example, let's say for 3-room, we can see from the table that Woodgrove Acres, even though it's not the cheapest one, but the gap is not that big versus Sembawang projects. So I think this is quite value for money.
Now let's talk about the location. So this is the map that HDB gave, and based on some other condo that they stated here, I think this is basically the land plot that they are talking about. This part, if we look at the HDB map again, it will be an upcoming proposed health medical center, proposed church, and also proposed park. So as you can see, this land plot is indeed a little bit far away from MRT station because Marsiling is over here, and then as you can see, Woodlands is over here. But then having said that, of course, you can always take a bus or ride a bicycle or something. Now, in terms of the surrounding, I just want to point out that indeed there is an expressway right behind the land plot. So if let's say you want to pick your unit later on, you would want to consider that there is an expressway over here. But having said that, beyond the expressway, as you can see, there's these vast greeneries, which means that if you are lucky enough to get a high floor, then you would have this very beautiful unblocked view towards the greeneries, which I think will be very serene and very soothing. Now, in terms of amenities, as you can see, the Woodgrove Mall is actually within walking distance. It's just over here. And then you also have other malls such as the Vista Point is over here. And then, of course, Causeway Point is just right over here. If we switch back again to the HDB map, as you can see, there are quite a lot of schools nearby. This will be very helpful, especially if you have young children. So quite a lot of primary school. And then also Singapore American School is over here. The reason why I'm pointing this out is because if indeed this project is only classified as a standard BTO, that means that after 5-year MOP, you will be able to rent out the whole flat after MOP. And if let's say you renovate your unit very nicely, you can even market it to some expats, because the reality is not all expats have big budget. Like some of them actually comes to Singapore under local package, or they have limited, financials. In terms of health facilities, I just want to point out that apparently the area actually going to have quite a lot of health and medical care facilities. So for example, there's a polyclinic here, which I know is further away, but then there will be also like another proposed health and medical care right over here, which is nearer. But then if you look at the map, the Woodlands Hospital is over here as well. So it's a short bus ride away, which is going to be good for you to live here in the long run. Now, if you are wondering where can you go for your day-to-day grocery shopping, so this is the land plot, and as you can see, there's a fair price here in the Woodgrove shopping mall. And of course, there are some eateries inside the mall as well. Now, I want to also point it out that next to the land plot of this BTO, Woodgrove Edge BTO is currently under construction and it is scheduled to be completed in 2027, but it is a mega project. So it has 1,127 flats, which is quite a lot. But then this will be good for your future resale benchmark price later on, because the location is just next to it, right? Meaning that when you want to sell your flat later on, then the prices from Woodgrove Edge will also help you so that you can fetch higher price for your flat later on, assuming that you want to sell your flat sometimes in the future. Another thing that I want to point out, so this is the land plot, right, for this BTO. But then if you see right across it, seems like the building opposite it is like low-rise building, which means that hopefully if you can get high floor or medium floor, you will be able to get a good unblocked view even though you don't face the greeneries. So now let's talk about the pros and cons. What do I like about this project? Well, I think it has a strong resale potential, especially because it's located, nearer to Mars Hill and Woodlands MRT station somewhat, instead of in Woodlands North. And then a lot of people also like Woodlands area itself. So I believe that the demand will continue to be strong. And then I also like that there are quite a lot of amenities nearby. So for example, the Woodgrove shopping mall is within walking distance. And then the HDB BTO next door, which is Woodgrove Edge BTO, has more amenities, so you can just use that. For example, they have an eating house, mini mart, several shops, etc. And then if you need healthcare facilities, there's an upcoming polyclinic next door according to HDB master plan, as well as Woodlands Hospital nearby. You can just take a bus. There's another polyclinic as well. Again, can simply take a bus. And then, of course, obviously, if you stay in Woodlands, you are relatively close to JB if you want to do affordable shopping. I also like that this project has wide selection of flat types from 2-room flexi up to 5-room flats. Another thing to appreciate about this project is that it comes with standard restrictions. So just the typical 5-year MOP, you can rent out the whole flat even after MOP, etc. Another thing that I appreciate is that there are quite a lot of schools nearby, so it will be very helpful if you have young kids. Another thing that I appreciate is that if we look at the map, there's this one side that will face a lot of greeneries, even though it will also face the expressway. But then if you get the top floors, then I think you can focus more on the greeneries and not so much being bothered by the expressway. And then on the other side of the plot seems to be surrounded by low-rise building. So I think if you are able to get high floors, then you will be able to have unblocked views. Okay, now what don't I like about this project? I think objectively, this project is far from MRT station. So as mentioned, Marsiling is about 1.3 kilometers away and Woodlands is about 1.6 kilometers away. But of course, you can always take a bus. Another bigger concern for most people is probably the expressway. Remember the part that I told you can see a lot of greeneries? So there's an expressway between this land plot and the greeneries. So if you can only get low floor or medium floor, then you will feel the impact of the expressway. Another watch out about this project is that I predict this project will have high application rate. Competition might be fierce because in general, Woodlands is very popular among Singaporeans. And then the amount of unit in this project is also kind of limited, so only 640, which is not that much. As mentioned earlier, usually if there's a BTO in Woodlands, it is being launched near the Woodlands North, but this one is closer to town. So I think this will be even more popular. Another thing that I don't like about this project is that it has limited on-site facilities. But then again, the HDB next door has more facilities like eating house, etc. So you can just walk over there. So in summary, I think if you like the Woodlands area, this is your chance to get a flat nearer to the heart of the Woodlands town. I consider this is a rare chance because typically HDB tends to release land plot near the Woodlands North area. So the fact that this one is a little bit closer to the crowd is good. The project ticks a lot of boxes. For example, there are plenty of amenities nearby, a lot of school options. It comes with just the standard restrictions, etc. Now, price-wise, it is not the most affordable one, for sure, but it's not the most expensive either. So it's like somewhere in the middle. If you want something that is far more affordable, then you can consider Sembawang. But I think this one is still okay. Especially if you don't mind taking feeder bus, this is the project for you.
Now let's talk about Sembawang Portico. If you're looking for a project that is affordable, will be completed fast, and suitable for families, then Sembawang Portico might be the project for you. This project is bounded by Admiralty Lane and Sembawang Drive and comprises of 3 residential blocks, each 26 stories high, offering a total of 875 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, and 5-room flats. I know there have been so many BTO projects in Sembawang in the past, several launches, so the easiest way to remember about this Sembawang Portico is that this is the BTO project next to the North Oaks Primary School. That's probably the easiest way to remember this project. In terms of construction time, because this project is part of the shorter waiting time program, the waiting time is estimated to be about 31 months, which is quite fast for HDB of this size. In terms of the on-site facilities, unfortunately, this project will only comes with a preschool, but not to worry because the BTO development just across the street, Sembawang Brook, has more on-site facilities, so you can just walk over there for convenience. If you're wondering how far is the nearest MRT station, unfortunately, it's not within walking distance. It's about 1.4 kilometer away according to Google Map, so you just have to rely on feeder bus if you live in this BTO. And as predicted, the classification for this project is standard, which means that you just get the typical restrictions such as 5-year MOP and no subsidy recovery or subsidy clawback at all, so that's good. And you will also be able to rent out the whole flat after MOP, and your future buyer is not subjected to any income ceiling cap. Now, if we look at the site plan, the design is kind of interesting because the layout seems to basically having the blocks surrounding the multi-story car park. However, I would say the watch out about this layout is that it tends to have very long corridors. For example, if we take a look at block 434A that are serving 12 units, but then these units are quite big. We're talking about 3-room, 4-room, and 5-room flats. So the amount of occupants would be more than one, right? Because it's not two-room flexi. So you can imagine that many people sharing 5 lifts. So indeed, I would say that the proportion between lifts versus number of units is not very ideal in this project. Now, if you're wondering where is the rental blocks, it's basically here in 433A. So as you can see, stack 405 and stack 407 are rental units. Now, if you want to know what are my other insights and observation regarding this site plan, like which one would be the best stack and which ones are less than ideal, please check out my other video as I'm discussing it separately. Now, let's talk about pricing. Now, for Sembawang Portico, 2-room flexi type 1 starts from $142,000 up to $184,000, while 2-room flexi type 2 starts from $157,000 up to $225,000. For 3-room, the price starts from $250,000 up to $344,000, while 4-room starts from $320,000 up to $437,000. And for 5-room, it is also still very reasonable, starting from $465,000 to $579,000. Now, if you look at the resale prices in the nearby area according to HDB, so these are the data. However, given that in the URA master plan, Sembawang shipyard transformation is slotted to be happening in near future, the overall resale value of the area might actually jump even beyond what is stated here. And again, because this project is only classified as a standard, then there's no subsidy recovery percentage that you need to give back to HDB when you sell your flat. Or if let's say you want to keep it as a passive income, you can also rent out the whole flat or even just rent out some spare rooms for additional income. Now let's talk about the location.
So if I look at the Google map, I believe that this is the land plot that we're talking about. As you can see, it is very huge. So no wonder it can fit more than 2,000 flats combined, because indeed it is a very huge land plot. If the land plot looks familiar, it is because the previous Sembawang BTO launches are basically located here, and I believe also here. So we have had like quite a lot of Sembawang launches in the past couple of years. Now, what is exciting about this location is the upcoming Sembawang shipyard transformation, assuming that it will happen. So as you can see, there's this giant dock basically, right? So URA actually have a master plan about this. The plan called Sembawang Shipyard Transformation Plan. It will basically transform the 86-hectare site into a mixed-use waterfront lifestyle district. So if indeed this plan push through, I believe that sooner or later it will also bring like a more convenient transport option there. I don't know whether it's only about additional bus routes or maybe additional MRT station. Hopefully that's the case. But the area is quite huge because the development is roughly about 3 times the size of Ang Mo Kio Town Center. So if indeed this push through, this will significantly boost the resale value of the area. So as you can see, your Sembawang plot is very near to the Sembawang shipyard itself, and as you can imagine, if you manage to get a flat here and it is only categorized as standard flat, then you will have just the typical restrictions, which means that you can rent out the whole flat after MOP, and then there's no income ceiling restriction for future resale buyers, etc. So indeed, if the Sembawang shipyard plan actually push through, it will be very beneficial for the BTO owners over here. Now let's talk about the school option. As you can see, obviously North Oaks Primary School is within walking distance, and then you can also see Canberra Secondary School over here. There's another primary school over here. So if we switch back to the HDB map, as you can see, even if we zoom out, there are more school options. So this is a good news for people with young children. If you are wondering where is the nearest MRT station, so it's right over here. So this is the land plot, right? And Sembawang MRT station is over here. So clearly you would need to take a feeder bus because it's kind of a bit far if you just walk. Obviously, near Sembawang MRT station, you will be able to find more amenities such as mall and also hawker center and plenty other shops. If you want something within the walking distance, on top of the on-site facilities that is offered in the Sembawang Drive BTO plot, you also have another eating house here and also several shops and cafe around here as well. So there are some amenities within walking distance, but of course it is kind of limited. That's the reality. For families with young children, there's this Jelutong Harbor Water Playground over here. I've been here before. It's actually quite nice and it's also free. So yeah, it's nice to go on the weekends with your family.
Now let's talk about the pros and cons, and starting from what I like about this project. So if you look at the lineup for June 2026 BTO launches, this project is one of those options that is relatively affordable. It is very budget friendly, so that's good for Singaporean family who wants to make sure that their spending is within their budget. And I also appreciate that this project is part of the shorter waiting time. So again, you only need to wait for about 31 months to collect the key, so that's excellent. For young families, the school options in Sembawang area is also quite good. And another thing that I like about this project is because HDB has been rolling out back-to-back Sembawang project for the past several launches, and even until the upcoming October 2026 BTO launch, they are still launching Sembawang. Oh my god. But if you want to look at it from a positive angle, that would mean that there are so many BTO flats in Sembawang that I think you would have relatively low competition if you apply for Sembawang Town in this launch. And then another thing I like about this project, well, it also has a 5-room option. So I think that's good because meaning there's a relatively wide selection of flat types. But of course, if you are interested to get 3-gen flat instead, it's only being offered at the other Sembawang BTO, which is Sembawang Brook. Another thing that I like is probably the standard classification. Because if Sembawang Shipyard Transformation Plan actually pushes through, and this project you are able to get it under the standard restrictions, then you might be able to profit quite handsomely actually, because such transformation plan most probably would be able to rejuvenate the area. Another thing that I like is there are plenty of resale benchmarks in the future because this BTO has a lot of units, and then several BTOs around the area are also mega projects, which means that when it's time for you to sell, there should be a lot of benchmark that you will be able to refer to. So typically, if that's the case, it's relatively easier to fetch higher price. Now, on the other hand, what don't I like about this project? Unfortunately, it is far away from any MRT station. As mentioned, it's about 1.4 kilometers away from Sembawang MRT station. However, I do hear some rumors that new MRT station might be built near the vicinity in the future, especially if the Sembawang Shipyard transformation actually pushes through. But until now, as far as I know, there's no confirmed plan yet. Another thing that I don't like is that this project do have limited amenities. Like even the on-site facilities is not that extensive, right? Compared to the other Sembawang project across the street. But it makes sense because I'm sure the way HDB thinks is that, oh, you already have an eating house across the street, why bother setting up another eating house in Sembawang Portico, which is a fair standpoint. Another thing that I think you need to watch out for is that because the area is still developing, there will be quite a lot of construction noise and dust for I don't know how many years. So that is something that you mentally need to be prepared of. So in summary, what do I think about this project? Well, I think if your focus is to make sure that you are able to secure an affordable house fast, meaning you don't have to wait so long to collect the keys, and you don't mind taking feeder buses, then probably this is a good project for you to consider. With the upcoming Sembawang Shipyard Transformation Plan, I do believe that it will increase the overall value of the area, and given how given how aggressive HDB has been rolling out different BTO back to back to back to back in the Sembawang area, to me, that indicates that the Sembawang shipyard transformation plan actually will push us through. Because otherwise, like, why would they bring in so many residents in that area, right? It doesn't make sense. It only makes sense if indeed that transformation plan will actually push through in the near future. Another thing is that even though there are two projects in Sembawang town in this BTO launch, I think it's pretty much almost apple to apple. Personally, I wouldn't mind too much like which one I get depending on your queue number. As you know, you only able to select a town and also the flat type, and then you cannot pick the project from the start. You can only do so if, let's say, you manage to get a queue number and you're being called to the HDB office, then you will be able to pick based on what's still available during your appointment. But Sembawang Portico, Sembawang Brook, it's not that much difference in my opinion beyond the price. And interestingly, prices between these two projects, even though they are just across the street from one another, somehow the price is slightly different. But I don't know whether you are that sensitive to the price. I think depending on individual situation. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below if you think I missed anything. Next up, we have Sembawang Brook. If you're looking for a project that is still affordable now but has the potential to significantly increase in value in the future, then Sembawang Brook might be just for you. Sembawang Brook is another BTO project in Sembawang town, bounded by Admiralty Street and Sungai Sembawang. This project is a mega project comprises of 5 residential blocks ranging from 26 to 30 stories in height. And the reason why I'm saying that this is a mega project because it will offer 1160 units of 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room, 5-room, and even the very rare 3-gen flats. These flats are offered under standard classification, which means that it only comes with 5-year MOP, no subsidy clawback, and you would be able to freely rent out the whole flat after MOP. Another good news is the construction time is actually less than 3 years because this project is part of the shorter waiting time. FYI, that one of the blocks will include 200 standalone rental flats. In other words, there's no mixed stack approach in this project. Now, in terms of on-site facilities, this project actually comes with quite a lot of facilities such as an eating house, a mini mart, several shops, preschool, and also residence network center. So I think this will be very helpful because as you can see, the area itself is still developing. There's not much that you can find within walking distance. So having these facilities on site will be very helpful for the residents here. If we look at the site plan, we can see that the area is definitely will be growing because as you can see, there are so many BTOs being built in this area. Other than that, they also already reserved site for another school next to the plot, and there's also a nook that is already reserved for a church. So the area is definitely growing. Now, in terms of the lift proportion, it's actually it's not that bad because 5 lifts is being shared among around 10 units. So I think overall that's still doable. Now, if you want to know my other insights related to the site plan, such as which stack has the best view and then which stack is less than ideal, please check out my other videos because I will be discussing it separately. Now let's talk about pricing. For 2-room Flexi Type 1, the price starts from $139,000 up to $187,000, while 2-room Flexi Type 2 is being offered starting from $164,000 to $218,000. For reference, nearby transaction for 2-room flexi in the area is already beyond $320,000, even almost touching $400,000, which is quite a surprise to me. Like, I wasn't expecting like 2-room flexi resale to be that expensive in Sembawang area, so that's interesting. Now for 3-room flat, the price will start from $257,000 up to $333,000. And again, I forgot to mention that the price that I'm listing here is before the housing grant. So if you are eligible for any grant, then you might be able to even buy this even cheaper than the price that I'm listing here now. And for 4-room flat, the price will start from $302,000 up to $428,000. And 5-room is also surprisingly quite affordable because the price starts from $420,000 up to $571,000. Now, if you are flexible with your budget and you can afford it, actually 3Gen is also very good value because the price starts from $468,000 up to $567,000. Now the difference between 5 room and 3Gen basically has 4 bedrooms, and out of the 4, 2 are actually master bedroom because it has ensuite bathroom. So if you think in long term, if you have the budget to buy 3Gen and then after the 5-year MOP, you can actually rent out the unit here. Especially if the Sembawang shipyard transformation plan actually pushes through, it will bring a lot of activity and vibrancy to the area. So that might also increase the interest of people to rent and buy resale flat in Sembawang area in the future. Now let's discuss the location of this project.
So if I look at the Google map, I believe that this is the land plot that we're talking about. As you can see, it is very huge. So no wonder it can fit more than 2,000 flats combined, because indeed it is a very huge land plot. If the land plot looks familiar, it is because the previous Sembawang BTO launches are basically located here, and I believe also here. So we have had like quite a lot of Sembawang launches in the past couple of years. Now, what is exciting about this location is the upcoming Sembawang shipyard transformation, assuming that it will happen. So as you can see, there's this giant dock basically, right? So URA actually have a master plan about this. The plan called Sembawang Shipyard Transformation Plan. It will basically transform the 86-hectare site into a mixed-use waterfront lifestyle district. So if indeed this plan push through, I believe that sooner or later it will also bring like a more convenient transport option there. I don't know whether it's only about additional bus routes or maybe additional MRT station. Hopefully that's the case. But the area is quite huge because the development is roughly about 3 times the size of Ang Mo Kio town center. So if indeed this push through, this will significantly boost the resale value of the area. So as you can see, your Sembawang plot is very near to the Sembawang shipyard itself. And as you can imagine, if you manage to get a flat here and it is only categorized as standard flat, then you will have just the typical restrictions, which means that you can rent out the whole flat after MOP, and then there's no income ceiling restriction for future resale buyers, etc. So indeed, if the Sembawang shipyard plan actually push through, it will be very beneficial for the BTO owners over here. Now let's talk about the school option. As you can see, obviously North Oaks Primary School is within walking distance, and then you can also see Canberra Secondary School over here. There's another primary school over here. So if we switch back to the HDB map, as you can see, even if we zoom out, there are more school options. So this is a good news for people with young children. If you are wondering where is the nearest MRT station, so it's right over here. So this is the land plot, right? And Sembawang MRT station is over here. So clearly you would need to take a feeder bus because it's kind of a bit far if you just walk. Obviously, near Sembawang MRT station, you will be able to find more amenities such as mall and also hawker center and plenty other shops. If you want something within the walking distance, on top of the on-site facilities that is offered in the Sembawang Drive BTO plot, you also have another eating house here and also several shops and cafe around here as well. So there are some amenities within walking distance, but of course it is kind of limited. That's the reality. For families with young children, there's this Jelutong Harbor Water Playground over here. I've been here before. It's actually quite nice and it's also free. So yeah, it's nice to go on the weekends with your family. Okay, if we look at the land plot itself, so this part is the school, right? And then after that, you have the high-rise residential building. And then this part also is going to be other BTO. Now, this part is industrial complex. So this will be like low-rise building. So if you manage to get high floors, you might be able to get some unblocked view. That would mean that maybe if you are at the right angle, maybe you can still have some unblocked ocean view, maybe. I'm not so sure. There's a small chance that you might be able to have that, but not so sure. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below.
Now let's talk about the pros and cons of this Sembawang Brook project, starting with the pros first. So what I like about this project is it's definitely budget friendly. So among the June 2026 BTO lineup, both Sembawang projects tend to be on the lower end in terms of price, despite of the inflation and global geopolitical situation. I applaud HDB actually to still being able to maintain affordable price, at least for Sembawang Brook. I see that the price is still very reasonable. And then if you live in this area, school options are also quite good because there are plenty of school options within the 2-kilometer radius. And in fact, there are another school that is being built just next door. Not so sure what level of education would that be, but at least school options are plentiful. Another thing that I appreciate about this project is that it has quite a complete on-site facilities because it will have an eating house, a mini mart, several shops, preschool, and also resident network center. Another positive point is because HDB has been rolling out Sembawang projects back to back to back to back. There are so many Sembawang flats. I'm guessing that Sembawang Brook would relatively have low competition. So if you just want a roof over your head, applying to Sembawang town gives you the best chance to secure a unit. Another thing that I like about this project is that it has a wide range of flat types because it even have 5-room, 3-gen, etc., which is already very rare, and typically HDB no longer offer that in mature towns. So you can only find those in non-mature towns. Because this project is a mega project, more than 1,000 units, that would give you plenty of resale benchmark in the future if you want to sell the flat after MOP. And of course, because this project is only classified as a standard project, you just have the typical restrictions, which means that after the 5-year MOP, you are free to rent out even the whole flat after MOP. Your future resale buyer is not subjected to income ceiling, etc. So that is something to be appreciated. Now, on the other hand, what don't I like about this project? There's no sugar coating that for now, this project is just far from any MRT station. In fact, according to Google Map, it's about 1.5 kilometers away to Sembawang MRT station. Even though the project itself has a good on-site facilities, but then if you look at the map, the reality is it is still a developing area. You have limited amenities within walking distance, so you would just have to be patient enough to take the feeder bus or maybe like ride a bicycle or something. In terms of the potential resale value, I think the reality is that it will heavily depend on whether Sembawang Shipyard Transformation Plan actually pushes through or not. Because, we don't know what will happen in the future. The plan might be delayed or maybe cancelled or maybe parked. We don't know. But if that transformation plan actually pushes through, I have no doubt that it will significantly increase the value of the area. Another thing that you might have to be mentally prepared is the construction noise and dust, because as you can see, the land plot itself is still being surrounded by like empty plots, which means that there will be a lot of development at least for several years to come. So in summary, I would say that this is a decent project, especially if you are heavily focused on making sure you buy something within your budget and just want a roof over your head very fast. There's a high chance that this project will have low competition rate, but to know more accurately, feel free to come back to this channel because I typically would make video about daily application rate, and if indeed that the application rate is on the lower end and you like Sembawang town, then maybe you can apply here to be able to secure a house and start your property journey. Even though Sembawang town has 2 projects in this June 2026 BTO launch, but personally in my opinion, because they are literally just next to each other, you just need to cross the street, it actually doesn't really matter which one you pick. There's no really substantive difference in my opinion. Well, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below.
To support my work, you can give a one-time tip by pressing the thanks button, pick the amount that you want, and click buy and send. Or you can also press the join button for exclusive contents and monthly membership. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!